The long and winding track that is the Eberspeche Luge World Cup Tour continues with stop number 2. We're in Altenberg, Germany on a warm afternoon where the ice temperature of minus 0.5 is holding steady, keeping somewhat consistent, if not exciting, action out on this course. We're about a 28-mile drive from the city of Dresden. It's a nice little countryside on the border of the Czech Republic and a 40-year-old track that was built originally for the secretive East German program. Hello once again, everyone. I'm Tim Singer, pleased to be joined for run number 2 by my broadcast partner, John Morgan. And John, we count them down from 3, 2, 1 with some big names and a few surprises, including Natalie Geisenberger.
Yeah, this young Austrian athlete surprised me. She had great speed all the way down the track. But Natalie Geisenberger, one of the moms in the competition, she's in second. But they're all chasing down Tatiana Ivanova, who last week was just not on the same playing field. Today she comes out, smokes everybody. She's the leader.
So quick update, John. Denchenko, who crashed, the World Championship bronze medalist, she crashed in run number 1. She will not start the second heat. I'll update that in a moment as we look at some of the rest. Their split times are on the right. Keep an eye on that as we get to the next few pages because the standings are pretty tight between 1 and 2 and between 3 and some of the other contenders for podium positions. Andrea Vetter and Turuma are tied. Natalie Geisenberger was in 3rd place after the first run last week in Innsbruck. She fell back to 5th. Will she earn her first ever podium, or will Geisenberger and Ivanova add to their already impressive resume of World Cup victories? All of that is coming up a little later, but we begin run number 2 with the Moldavian, who made history earlier today with the first ever appearance by a female Moldavian in the sport of World Cup Luge, Doina Desculou, grabbing the handles and pulling off. And John, just quickly, Victoria Denchenko is okay. That was a spectacular crash. She got back on the sled and finished. She just chose, probably wisely, that she not to race in run number 2, nothing to be gained.
She's the only casualty of the first heat, and Tim, in Altenberg, usually you expect 3 or 4 casualties, and Denchenko was probably in a top 5 run when she crashed down in curve 12.
Very, very possibly.
Very positive, and it was, visually tough to look at, but she walked away fine. It's great to hear she's okay.
You know, she had probably the most spectacular crash in the last 5 years.
Watch out here, watch out.
Yep. It was in Königssee 2 years ago when Denchenko crashed and had a concussion.
She just made that mistake into 11, and still, she's not experienced enough to realize just hit the wall once or twice and let the sled go straight. You know, she might have tried to correct away from the wall, and that, again, I bet you,
58 miles an hour. That's easier said than done, right?
She's probably produced a few black and blues there, and that's, I think, gives you an idea what this Altenberg track can do.
Definitely, and when we see the men go tomorrow from the top 1,300 meters, or when sometimes you see the other sliding sports, some of the issues are much higher up on the track. And they might have the hard hit out of 9 or Kreisel, and that will slow them down enough where this bottom part won't present as many problems.
Well, you can see what the track does here. One little mistake up there in the 11-12 combination, and she lived with it for another 10 seconds before she finished.
Olena Shmaha, the Ukraine, was 26th after the first run, 27th last week in her World Cup opener.
Start time 5:70 in the first run, 5:69 here. You always want to improve. She did that.
They begin freezing this track in early October. It generally takes a week or so for them to get it ready. And that's a trend I've noticed, John, around the world on the tracks. Doesn't it seem as if they're getting on ice a lot earlier in the season than they used to?
Well, my day used to start sliding in mid-December if you're lucky. And then nowadays in Lake Placid, the first week in October usually is when the track starts to open up. And COVID this year sort of set everything back. But the track in Lillehammer's open.
That's right.
In early October. October. A lot of teams are up there training.
Zugler this year. So she crosses at a 53.598. That's just slightly better, about 500 better than her first run. And John, just to set the record straight, in my mind, it still is your day. So when you say back in my day.
Back in my day.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Tim. You're so kind. She's through and down. She'll go to the leader's box. Sama. Here where there's been a lot of issues, a lot of sleds. Good lines, crossover. She got herself on the right-hand wall to take it into 13 and crossed over to 14 very successfully. And she got down. She'll be competing probably tomorrow on the team.
Okay, Natalie Yamanco up now. She was first off in run number 1. That's why she has number 1 on her bib. This is a cumulative race, 2 heats. It's a total time. They add the time from the first run here, and that's how it's done in the World Cup and the World Championships in the sport of luge. Only the Olympics stage the races in 4 heats.
Only Polish medal in the World Championships, Barbara Pikela in Olong in 1971. Over my history. So, in Poland they've got some doubles, gold and silver that they had in Imst in '63, and they got 2 world championships.
Sure.
And so they're a sliding nation with some history.
Yeah, I mean a great tradition in the sliding sports, and in all winter sports, especially ski jumping. Hey, there are no better winter mountaineers than the Poles, who have all sorts of first descents in the Himalayas. 150.698 is the 2-run combined time.
Well, I was told that there was 45 or 52-man bobsleds in a Polish national championship in the 60s. And the Polish program fell off, but it's starting to come back.
Hey, John, if you want to have our viewers join in and are watching live, you can tweet us at Luge Announcer. You can also email us luge.announcer@gmail.com, your questions, your comments. And our friend Martin is watching this morning from Hilversum, the Netherlands, and says it sounds great. So thanks for tuning in, Martin.
Yes.
I think Martin may have been in Zugler the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, he was up there for 2.5 weeks.
And speaking of the Netherlands, here's Daria Obratov. She and her sister Danya competed for Croatia at the Olympic Games, but then switched to the Dutch program in an effort to help build up that program really from nothing.
Yeah, the only ice sport the Dutch like are the thing called speed skating, and they're pretty good at it. Bobsledders, they've hung in there, I forget the name, but the Dutch have done pretty good at bobsledding. They won some medals last week in scouting, Dutch female athletes up in Zugler. So they're trying to break out of that we only do speed skating routine.
Mm-hmm. We did talk about earlier, as Daria continues to hang on to the advantage into the green here, that the Netherlands, which is all about speed skating, of course, they have very tough Olympic qualifying standards. You just can't say, I want to try this sport and no one else does it, so I'm going to make the Olympic team.
54.84, she's 3,400 slower than her first run. She falls out of the leader position. But 11-12, yeah, she knows it. Of course, you don't have to just look at it. I mean, watch her on the marks here. She's going up and down here in the Kreisel, way above that last mark, and then she exits not comfortably. You can see her feet down, and now this is way down to 14 on the exit, and she got out of there too early, and her feet are still down. That's why she was 3,500 slower than her first run.
Now on course from Sweden, Tova Kohala, 19-year-old student from Luge, Sweden. Finished 19th at the Youth Olympic Games on what really amounts to be her home track in Lillehammer, Norway.
Yeah, Tim, we talked about it in the first run. Hammerstrand 5 times, 67, 75, 81, 3 times. Sweden has hosted the World Championships in Rosenthal.
Now, Sweden, they've been in the hunt for some bids for Winter Olympic Games, John.
Sure,
Maybe even
they just
finalists.
lost out, yeah.
But they've never gotten it. Of course, Stockholm hosted the Summer Olympics. Was that
52,
56
52?
maybe, or 52?
No, 56 was Melbourne. 52.
And then it
I
was
think.
52.
Well, she's coming down with a big half-second lead, and she's going to get through the Altenberg track. I don't think Sweden's got a team event tomorrow, so she's the leader.
They have
Lost a little bit of time in the bottom.
no doubles team for Sweden, but yes, she has the lead. Her speed of 69.5 is almost a full kilometer an hour slower than the Ukrainian, but she has a 0.3 of a second advantage up on her in finish time.
Yeah, she was 4,400s up around the before, I think 11-12 here. And on the bottom, she lost about 1,600s back. So that was relative. She didn't have that same speed as the Ukrainian sled. But she's happy. Altenberg is in her rear view mirror. And again, this is a very challenging track. When you come to Altenberg, you better pay attention.
Okay, Veronica Ravenna now grabs the handles and gives us an opportunity to say that Karen has, she's messaged in. She's watching in Whistler, Sun Peaks, British Canada right now. Missing seeing the Canadians and USA athletes competing, but of course Veronica Ravenna, representing Argentina, is one of theirs as well in Western Canada.
Argentina had some bobsled athletes in 32, 36, I think in 48. So it's nice to see a South American country. We had some skeleton athletes, I think, in the 2002 games from Argentina. So it's nice to see them.
A lot of good skiers from Argentina.
Yeah, for sure. Good run. I mean, she's green numbers. I don't know if it's going to be enough. She's clean here. Yeah, she's got a half-second speed. Not very good speed. She's going to lose back 10/100s or so.
Well, it's the
in the 30s.
Best speed of the run so far. So 147.806.
Boy, she even accelerated more, even with that speed deficiency, Tim. So.
Well, my computer's not showing a deficiency. It had her at 71 miles an hour, which was a half mile faster than anyone so far. So not bad. Good showing by Veronica, whom I mentioned earlier today. Her goal this season, make all of the World Cup races, get through the Nations Cup qualifying. And so far, she's 2 for 2 on that count.
Yeah, she's came right down this track that's got some teeth to it, and she beat the track, finished.
Marian Oberhofer, the first of the Sioux Tyroleans to hit the track here in run number 2. Marian now lives in the city of Rodengo. She moved there about 3 years ago.
Tim, last week in Innsbruck, she had the 2nd and the 5th best start. This young athlete has some potential. But we've been talking about it. The Italians, all of them have great starts.
Well, as Paula messaged in earlier today, Italy has recruited the best of all time in terms of starts for women's luge. Catania Hufner, 3-time Olympic medalist, worked with Italy in the preseason in Cesana in the start house.
Successful slider ever for female.
Well, for Olympics, she's got some challengers, but she certainly was among the best over the past 15 years until she retired 2 years ago.
Green, looking good. Don't want to jinx her, and I just did. Oh, stay on the sled.
Quick recovery. How about that for reflexes?
I can't believe she's going to still be green. No
chance.
In the last 150 meters. But still only 3,600s down with that mishap.
It's so impressive, John, how they get back onto that sled so quickly, because that's not just agility and instinct.
No.
That's core muscles. That's a lot of physical effort to do that at that speed.
You're going 60 miles an hour. You're sliding across the ice in a Lycra suit. And here's another victim of the Altenberg track. Boy, looking at 15 at that angle is not enticing. Wow. She corrected very well. Very, very impressed, Tim. I thought she was over and done. Through and down.
Verena Ravenna of Argentina, holding on to the lead, and now the South Korean. Eileen Frisch, 28 years old. She's the 2012 Junior World Champion. Of course, at that time competing for Germany. Among her hobbies, Eileen says she enjoys traveling, which is a good thing, John, because her adopted home is about 5,000 miles away from her native home.
Yeah.
You gotta like traveling.
Well, she wasn't on the list last week for men's world, Tim, so she didn't qualify in Nations Cup?
She did not qualify in Nations Cup.
This is quite an improvement. I mean, she had a pretty good first run. As you said, she finished 8th at the Winter Olympic Games.
Home track.
Well, probably had 200 more trips down the track than anybody else in the field.
Which is what makes David Gleicher's gold medal that much more amazing. Yeah. The fact that he just did not have more than a dozen.
Wonder what was his odds to win the gold medal? 50 to 1, 100 to 1?
Just incredible. We'll see David Gleicher tomorrow in the men's race.
Half second lead here. No speed to 112 kilometers. She could lose 3/4 tenths back here. No, not too bad.
147.457. Incidentally, we will see Gleicher tomorrow in the men's race, headlining that effort because he is the defending champion, having won the World Cup here in Altenberg last year.
So it wasn't a one-hit wonder.
No, it wasn't, but it took a little while. About a half season, he started getting on the podium after the Olympic gold, and now he's got a victory to his credit as well.
There was another first-time winner in that Korean Olympics named Mariana Yamanco, who had never won a World Cup medal, like Gleicher, and she won the gold in women's bobsled.
And look what that's done. She's been a fixture on the podium since.
Yeah. Remember when the Germans didn't even want her on the program and the team? She was a replacement athlete. Little did they know 4 years later she'd be winning the Olympic gold medal.
Eileen Frisch takes over the leader box from Veronika Ravenna, and back to the top we go from Slovakia, Katarina Simanikova.
Only got 400s in the bank on Frisch. Start. Let's see what she does. 5:65, 100 slower than her first heat. Labyrinth. And now curve 9, really one of the pivotal parts of the track, and she negotiates that better than most.
Slovakia finished 5th or 6th last week in the team relay, which was a great showing of the fact that they have representation in every discipline.
Ooh, she got away from that. Little air on the exit of 12, and she's doing good here. Oh, no speed, though. 1,500s back. She might stay 1,1800s back, but I don't think she's getting into the red. Yeah, 10. So she's coming back in the bottom, Tim.
Second place. Veronika Ravenna still has by far the fastest speed by over a half a kilometer or half a mile per hour, a full kilometer over everyone else. She's in third. Simanikova here in second, and Eileen Frisch on the track she grew up on here in Altenberg continues to lead.
Simanikova, though, was 19th last week, so should be better than that this week, or the same? 1, 2, 3, about the same. Good lines here, but, are the good lines because she steered too much? No speed at the bottom, only 112 kilometers. Can't be critical of this. Look at the way she angles over under the take-on, 14. Happy. Altenberg didn't get her.
23rd place finish in her World Cup debut last week for this Latvian, Zigita Berzina. Just 20 years old, and she has a lot of mentors to look up to and learn from on this Latvian program. Kristaps Murins, the team manager and coach of Latvia, was very pleased with the start of the season. In fact, he said, we need to improve our performance, but we are very satisfied with how things began from top to bottom.
You talk about the start. She had the 3rd best starts in both runs last week, and she has the 4th best start in the first run this week. So
sensational.
This is an aspiring, competitor out of that sliding sports nation of Latvia.
Later on, we've got Elisa Taruma, and we've got Ula Candia. So we have 3 more Latvians still to come.
I want to jinx her. This is pretty good. Boy, she's got a huge lead, Tim. Half second speed, 114 kilometers. It's one of the better speeds we've seen.
Second best speed. She crosses
71 hundredths. Whoa, did she accelerate away? She's not 700ths in front. 71 hundredths. So this could be a rising star in the Latvian program.
And
good
also
start.
a faster second run than the first run, and that has not been the trend in the 2 races staged so far today. So that's a good sign.
I don't think she's going to finish back in 23rd like she did last week. So she's going to be up into maybe the mid-teens. This was a great run, great lines. 4th best start in the first run. She probably has a top 4 start here in the second run, and she could live in that leader's box a few sleds, Tim.
Absolutely. Well, Natalie Ma getting ready at the top as we have Luge moms are tuning in now from Saranac Lake, New York. They're up early watching. Love hearing you and John this morning, they say, and wondering if we expect to have any guest athlete commentators this year, given the COVID restrictions. And Luge moms, thanks so much for watching. We certainly hope to have some guests. We have a former Olympian joining us tomorrow, so stay tuned for that surprise.
1800s back here for Mog of Switzerland. And boy, with the run that the young Latvian athlete just had, that's going to be a lot for her to overcome. No mistakes allowed. She's bleeding more time, quarter of a second back.
Not a lot of representation from Switzerland, which is a sled-crazy nation, but just Natalie Mogg representing that country in the sport of World Cup Luge this season.
1961, Elizabeth Nagel from Switzerland won the World Championships in Grunbach. So Switzerland's even, and of course they've got a team gold medal they just won recently too. But look at that, Tim, 2600ths deficit. So that young Latvian, like we said, 23rd last week, she could be in the mid-teens by the time we're done here.
And Natalie Mogg can do no worse than 18th place this weekend, which is exactly where she finished last weekend. But John, you can see on her face, that is not where she wants to be.
All of her time. This is out of 12. Spectacular pictures. Looks a little late there out of 12. And look at the way this is the front side of that picture. Look at the way she was late and she got out. She had to steer out of there and she got over on the wrong side of that straightaway. Well, not too wrong as you get closer to the next curve.
So as we get ready for our next competitor, Hanna Prock, a quick update again. Victoria Denchenko had an incredible crash in run number 1. She stayed on the sled. She got a finish time, chose not to compete here in the second run. We've gotten a report she's headed back to her hotel. She has a headache. So if that's the worst of her issues, John, that's good news.
Spectacular crash, and to see her walk away tells you a lot of safety in this sport. There was a hard part of the take on, and then look at the way she hit there. So she made the mistake of that hard turn and the take on, and on the exit she ran into the wall before too. So it's going to be tough for her to overcome. It's only 700ths back at the moment, but that's probably going to bleed out to another 1500s at the next clock.
The Austrian finished 17th at the last Olympic Games and then earned her first podium, a third-place finish in Berchtesgaden the following season. Snowy day there.
800, so she stopped the bleeding quickly. Now she's in green numbers. What a real great comeback here for the daughter of a famous luge athlete, Marcus Prock.
Now the sport director of this Austrian program to the finish, looking
great
really
run.
solid.
I mean, what a comeback.
Good recovery, 146.503. That puts her 2300ths ahead of the Latvian, who had a nice little run moving up the standings.
1700ths better in the second run. And Tim, that mistake she made up in 1 and 2, she blocked that out of her mind. And impressive.
Yeah, very impressive. And she looked good last week in Innsbruck as well. She was just off of the podium, a 5th place finish in the sprint competition.
It's her third year sliding? Her third year in the World Cup?
Second full year.
Second full year.
Maybe
here's
even
the
her
Kreisel.
first full year. Yep.
Good lines and a little high there on the ad exit, but here's the very imposing 13-14 crossover combination. A lot of speed, a lot of G-force. She's happy with that result. Going to be a top 16.
Hunneprock into the lead, 5th place last week in the sprint competition. And now the woman whom Coach Norbert Locke calls Rosie, Cheyenne Rosenthal, 20-year-old from Winterberg, Germany. One of her hobbies, eating out, which is not something you can do this year too often.
This is a very good start athlete, 3rd and 2nd last week at the start. And she had only the 9th best start in the first heat here, Tim, so a little suspect. Let's see what she does this time. Quarter of a second lead. In a normal track, she'd be the leader, but we're in Altenberg. So I always say, I compare Altenberg in the bobsled world to Darlington in NASCAR. The track, they say, is too tough to tame. And we've seen the track beat up some of these athletes. This is pretty good so far. Hope I don't jinx her.
Not bad. She stayed out of trouble. So the speed of 71.1, that's
Speed's
the fastest.
Good. Speed's good.
So she crosses in the lead. Cheyenne Rosenthal, number 4 on the depth chart amongst these Germans. But incidentally, the woman who had that distinction last year, Anna Bierreiter, did not even qualify for the World Cup team despite 2 victories last season. Bierreiter at home right now. We expect we will see her later on this season, at least on her home track in Königssee.
So here's the comparison in curve 12, 11 and 12, Hannah Prock, Rosenthal on the right. Looks to me like Prock is out of the curve better. Rosenthal looks like she was coming to the right a little bit. Looking a little, can't say she's late there, but looks pretty good. She had a 2,500s lead at the halfway mark, ended up with 1000s, and she's now in the leader box.
Ulla Zerna on course now, 15th and 13th in the 2 races last week. The designer and the proprietor of the small business known as Ooh La La Clothing. Maybe she should get into the speed suit end of things.
Well, green numbers. Not a lot of time to play with. 400s at the moment, and she's in the red. So she lost the lead.
Top 10 finisher last year at the World Championship in Sochi, Russia. Now through the Kreisel.
Doesn't get very good starts. That's why she was in the green to red deficit immediately. But she could be a speed merchant here in the bottom.
Well, we've seen that from the Latvians so far today in both disciplines.
800s, 114.5. I don't know if she's going to overcome that 800. She might get it down a few, but
she did. Yeah. She gained a little more time at the bottom. She and Cheyenne Rosenthal have the exact same speed, 71.1 miles per hour. That is tied for the fastest, and not surprisingly,
she got beat at the start.
They're 1st and 2nd. Yes, and she did. Top half of the course.
Big difference in the start times of the athlete Rosenthal in the leader's box and this young Latvian here. This looks fine here. Quiet. Kreisel, does she hit the marks? There's one. She goes too low there, but she hits that 2nd, 3rd mark pretty good. Can't fault too much of the drive, but when you have the 20th best start time in the first heat, that could be something she needs to work on.
Ekaterina Baturina. In the absence of Denchenko, she's the first of just 3 Russians in today's 2nd heat. 28-year-old from Krasnoyarsk, which is an area, John, where many bobsledders have come from. They have a start track in Krasnoyarsk. You remember our good friend Popov? He was from there.
Evgeny Popov, Mr. Zubkov. So, not a lot of time to work with here. Green numbers. Well, the Russians, well, Denchenko's spectacular crash in the first heat. This is down to 300s. Good lines. She could hang in there. We're seeing at the moment. Good lines. Well, a lot of pressure there, though, and that 13, and now it's red numbers. Boy, 110. That might be some of the worst speed we've seen in this run, Tim.
That's right, among the slowest. I'll let you know when she crosses the finish line back in 5th place.
Wow.
Keep in mind, a Russian leads after the first heat. Another is in 4th, but not a good run for Batarina. And that speed is 3rd slowest. 3rd slowest so far.
Got pressure into 13. She got way too high into 13. I don't think that's was the pivotal part of her run where she lost all the time, but it did not look good visibly. Here, we'll see it here. This is out of 12. Gets into the left side. She's starting to come back to the wrong side of the straightaway. Now she's trying to come back over. Now watch how high she gets. Probably that's the highest sled we've seen so far in a couple races that we've had televised today. So.
Moving along now, Ken tweets in from North Carolina saying that if all Victoria Denchenko got was a headache, that's not too bad. And of course, we've seen a lot worse for Victoria Denchenko, and I think rarely does she ever miss a World Cup weekend. She's usually right back at it. Now Verena Hoffa on course for Italy, second to last of the Sioux Tyroleans, 19 years old. She'll turn 20 on St. Patrick's Day in a couple of months.
Well, she doesn't. The other Italians have great starts. She's got like the 16th best start in this heat. Last week she was 10th and 12th. But she's got 20 hundredths in the bank right now. But all of a sudden it's gone. Or is that 200ths? Now she's back in the green. 300ths. So she hit the blue marks. The high there. Watch her in the exit. I don't like that exit. On the wrong side of that curve. Proven me wrong, and in fact, 600s, 115, magic speed. This will be the leader.
Yes, that's the fastest speed, and to the finish she comes with a 53.156, a solid run for Verena Hoffa. In fact, just 1,000th of a second slower than her first heat run. That's consistency, and that's the lead for the time being.
Yeah, that's a 13th place last week. I think that's where she is right about now, right?
She's in 12th. Yep.
12th, so she's improved. So no matter what, she'll improve over last week's finish of 13th. Paddles, consistent. Ooh, maybe it goes a little bit too far left. You see the right knee come up. Looking to Kuflin to get it around that curve. Can't fault too much of that. Young 19, 20-year-old slider.
Only one coach is allowed down in that finish area to greet the athlete. No more entourages due to the strict standards of social distancing. Now 11th place after run number 1 out of yesterday's Nations Cup qualifying from Austria, Lisa Schulte.
Top 6 last week on her home track. Good starter, 5th and 4th last week. But the 12th best start in the first run this week, and that was a hard hit in the first part of curve 1.
Start time significant, but certainly not as significant in luge as it is, at least in bobsled. I'm not sure about skeleton.
Oh, skeleton. Yeah. Probably way more than luge. But, when you're dealing with thousandths of a second, I got to believe when you get out of the car in the morning, it seems
right. Exactly, and we are dealing with thousandths of a second. She was just 6 thousandths behind on the last split, and now Schulte moves into the green.
A little late there, watch out. She's very nice. Yeah, she's 4,000th down, 114.4. It's good speed, but it's not the 115. She might be second, yes, by 100th, 18 thousandths.
That was the closest run so far from top to bottom amongst the leader and the pursuer as Hoffa continues to hold on. Schulte back by 18 thousandths, and Cheyenne Rosenthal currently in 3rd place with the top 10 still to come here in Altenberg.
Yeah, Lisa Schulte's top 6 last week will not achieve that this week, but chalk it up for that young Austrian. And look at the way the sled skids the back end a little bit there. That looks like a high line early, but look at the way she comes out. Is that skidding there a little bit?
That'll cost you 18 thousandths. All right, it's Italy in front and Italy getting ready at the top. 19-year-old Nina Zugler. Last week she had a career best 10th place finish at the World Cup in Eagles. She sits on that equal 10th place position after one run here in Altenberg. She just finished high school this past summer and can now concentrate full time, at least for a while, on the sport of luge.
Her father, Tom Brady of luge, Armin Zugler, the greatest of all time. She's the third female competitor whose father was an Olympic medalist. So great to see that legacy continue from these young athletes.
Absolutely. Incidentally, her cousin, Sandra Robacher, certainly one of the best of the Italians, is missing the entire season with yet another injury, second year in a row. Sandra won her first ever World Cup race here in Altenberg 2 years ago. We wish you a speedy recovery if you're watching.
Hey, it's close. It's like 100th of a second close. See what... Oh, she's red numbers now, and that's not good. Feet out. Only 114.2, so I don't think she's going to match Hoffer's time, the Italian. Should be the top two, though. No, she's dropped 4 spots.
It's incredible. Within a 10th of a second, but 4 spots down, or 3 spots down, in 4th place. It's Italy, Austria, Germany, Italy, Latvia, the top 5 for the moment.
Yeah, there's going to be a few Germans on top of that top 5 before we're done. Okay, into curve 12 here. It's the same now. Looks like the same sled, but just 2 Italians, exactly the same look. That little drift, toes come out. What's that worth? 400s, 300s, 500s.
Coach Norbert Locke and Armin Zugler both watching the action as Elisa Teruma now hits the ice. Teruma in 8th place after run number 1.
7th best starter. Another one of the young Latvian athletes.
Not so young, an Olympic medalist in 2014. Elisa now 30 years old.
Stand corrected, Tim. Thank you.
Well, 30 years old is young compared to you, John. So
thanks for bringing that.
So you were correct there. 2-time Olympian, 12th place in 2014, but also took a bronze medal in the team relay. Latvia's first and to date only Olympic team medal.
Boy, big speed. This is 3,400. She could get this out to 4000s with that 116-kilometer speed. She gets it out to 49.
A half second better than everyone else. Great job by Elisa Teruma.
Wow, that's impressive. She finished 12th last week in Innsbruck. She's going to be at least 8th or 9th
Well,
here.
she's tied to the 1,000th with the next sled to come down, Andrea Fetter. So she has, to use a really bad overused cliche, she's laid down the gauntlet.
Well, top 9, so she's improved by at least 3 sleds, if not more. This was a run. That's the best we've seen. Speed Merchant at the bottom of the track, the best speed we've seen. 116 kilometers, 72 miles an hour, Tim?
Yes, 72.1.
Yeah.
Okay, Andrea Vetta now on course, the final of the Italians. 25 years old, she has steadily improved during her career. In fact, this is her 8th season on the World Cup. And she has gone from 48th place to 28th to 20th to 19th to 16th, and last year 7th in the overall. And with her first ever podium.
And this is the best starter in the field in the first run. Last week, that's strange. Last week she had the 7th and 16th best start time.
Well, again, it's different courses, different. I mean, that track in Innsbruck, they have the quick left-hand turn right out of the start ramp. So it's an entirely different form.
So maybe this track's for a paddler.
Absolutely, as is Koenigsee, as is Winterberg.
1,200ths lead. That's a lot, but remember the speed that the Latvians had down below. See what happens here to see if there's a chance. Ooh, gets in there tight on the take on. That was pretty good, actually.
Split time here. She falls
she
behind
lost it.
into the red. 71.
She's a kilometer down. I don't think she has a chance to finish it now.
No, they were tied to the 1,000th. She is second place, just behind the Latvian. So it's Taruma, Beta, Hoffa, and Schulte. Latvia, Italy, and Austria. The top four with the German getting ready to go at the top.
I don't think it was that bad of a run. I just think that Taruma had a spectacular run with that big speed in the bottom. Here's the best starter in the competition in the first run. How does her entry into curve one? It was fine. Little drift here out of 9. I don't think that's something you should be penalized for, but she's real high there on those marks. Really not consistent lines through Kreisel. That could have cost her, Tim.
Deanna Eitberger, the Olympic silver medalist, is next to go at the top. 7th place after run number 1. And John, she puts really life in perspective. Deanna was telling me last week that the best part about being a mother, other than all of the obvious reasons, is the fact that even if she has a bad race, her little boy Levi doesn't understand. It doesn't matter to him. He's there for her, and she's there for him. So that's just such a great tribute.
Mothers and sliding. You didn't see this 25.
No.
Well, you can classify her as speed merchant for sure. But we are in Altenberg, which if you go too fast, the track gets mad at you.
800's up. Pair of third-place podium finishes last week for Deanna. She lost some time in run number 1 down here at the bottom of the track.
Only 800th at that last clock. Let's see what this says. Watch for the speed. Only 1200s, 116.4 best speed. This will be the leader.
Deanna Eitberger, can she move up from her 7th place finish in run number 2? We'll find out in the next few sleds, but at least she's done her job. The fastest run of the heat and the fastest overall at 145.67.
3,200ths better than her first run. Now, is the track faster, or did she just have a bad first run? I would say she had a bad first run.
It's looking that way. Although, John, as we mentioned in the first heat, Deanna said this is not a track she likes. She was pretty clear about that. One of her least favorite, least successful courses in the world.
Well, as quiet as a line you can have between 12 and 13 and 13 to 14. Looks pretty textbook right there, and that's why she can celebrate.
Deanna done for the day, and now Candia Aparioda of Latvia. The final Latvian, whose main goal this season is to be more confident with herself. And of course, she says as an extension for that, that'll make her more relaxed on the sled. And John, you know what that means.
You want to be you and the sled have to be one.
Candia got involved in the sport from a big luging family, and her mom used to be a luger.
Tim, you keep talking about my bobsled stuff, and I talk about it, but my brother Terry was 5 times national champion double luge, and my sister Bridget was the forerunner in the Olympic Games, so I do have a little luge instinct.
No question about it. It's in the bloodlines down the track. At your Lake Placid home track. Here comes Candia Aparioda on the straightaway, 13-14.
Good speed, though. It's a 100th of a second. I don't know. She was high there. This is too close to call.
Moves into the red and second place by just 800ths of a second. So Deanna Eitberger of Germany continues to hang on to the lead, moving up 1 position into the top of the 6. It's Aparioda in second with the top 5 still to come here in Altenberg, Saxony, Germany.
She had the second best speed. You know, she just got beaten by Altenberger, who's, you know, one of the legends in the sport. Altenberger on the left looks a little higher in the exits. here. Can't fault any of that line. Both sleds had great speed.
5 remaining now. Yulia Tobits getting ready at the top. Tobits, in the absence of Geisenberger and Eidberger last year, had some big booties to fill, and she did it pretty well, winning the World Cup overall, just ahead of Tatiana Ivanova. And then she came back, John, with an historic day last Sunday in Innsbruck.
And she sits in 5th place. I said at the end of that heat, her slide down the track, that I expect a big run out of her here. Because this is where she was born and raised, Tim, not far from here.
That's correct.
She likes this track, and she didn't have that great of a run that I thought. See, she won the event going away last week, won 3 gold medals last week, as you said, Tim. Only happened one other time in the history of the sport.
That is correct. Semen Pavlichenko did it for Russia in Sochi World Cup finale 2 years ago. But Tobits still in the green, well out ahead of her teammate.
Speed, going to have 116 kilometers to match. She's got the 116.4. That's not the 116.8 for Altenberger.
Well, she had a 0.2 advantage lead at the last split. She keeps it just under 2. So first place for now. Probably the World Cup overall, depending on what Geisenberg does. That'll actually be close. But Tobits into the lead with 4 remaining.
Yeah, she's 700ths out of a bronze. I still think she's got a chance for a medal, Tim.
What it will boil down to is how much the next two, Katnikova and Egla, can fight off the nerves, because they're the two that have not seen the World Cup podium too often.
Well, the Austrian come up, and Madeline has never been on the podium.
That's right. She was close last year, but before we get to her, we will get to the world champion up at the top. Katnikova's double worlds last year in Sochi was somewhat reminiscent of Gleicher's gold medal at the Olympic Games. Not quite as much, because this was her home track, but Katnikova had never been on the podium in an international race until she won that world gold.
So the world champion bib she's wearing, she's 5:62 start. She didn't have a very good start in the first run. She had 18th best start in the first run, but she's what you can call a speed merchant. And she's going to need to do that on the bottom part of this track.
Intermediate split coming up here. It shows her only 100th behind, so she certainly can do this.
This is where, if she gets the proper line, she will. There's the green. Now the question is, how much green can she get here in the bottom part of this track? And 116.5, 116.9, best speed of anybody. This could be a medal run right here.
Katerina Katnikova moves into the lead, fastest run of the heat, and the overall 145.37. As you mentioned, John, that not only puts her in very much in medal contention, that also is good news for Tatiana Ivanova, still to come for Russia, because it means that these technicians have set up these sleds for these conditions.
Well, when you have the 18th best start at the top and you're able to achieve the best speed on the bottom, it's about equipment, and it's also about the driver. You know, look at the different lines. They look pretty exact there between Tobits. And boy, this is perfect here. It had to be perfect for her to achieve that 72.8 miles an hour, Tim, but 116.9, is it?
That's right. And one thing this does guarantee is there will not be another German 1-2-3 win and sweep as there were in the 2 races last week.
So here's a big heat right here.
Okay,
Never won a medal.
Madeline Egel last week was 3rd after the first run. She dropped to 5th. Now she has a chance to earn her first World Cup podium.
She had the 10th best time of the second run last week when she fell out of that podium position. And, you know, you got to root for her, Tim. We'd love to see first-time medalists.
Especially coming off of a bad shoulder injury, which she told me is far from recovered still.
Pretty good start. Top 6 start last week. Same pretty much this week, even with that injured shoulder.
10th of a second. It's going to be about nerves and driving ability.
Yeah,
now.
that's not a safe amount on this track with teeth. Ooh, a little bit there. Unsure of herself. And here's 4,000.
She is going to drop out of the podium again.
Yeah, 1:15.6 is not the speed to match those sleds that just came down.
So second place, she still has a chance for the podium depending on what happens, but the next two are the best in the world, and they do not give medals away, John. Geisenberger and Ivanova. So Egla may be on the outside looking in again, and all because of taking one corner a little too high.
Tim, she was, close to getting that medal last week. She's even closer this week, no matter what. That looked like a little bit of a tough transition, and her feet came down. So she got on between 11 and 12. She made that mistake, and I don't know if I could say that cost her, but certainly prevented her from that 116-kilometer speed that she would have needed. But still, her best finish ever, fourth.
They're waiting on deck behind. The sponsor signage is Tatyana Ivanova of Russia. She'll be the last to come down with 14 career victories, but now the most decorated athlete in the history of women's luge, Natalie Geisenberger, looking for her 50th career victory to go along with 3 Olympic medals in women's singles.
Well, she's controlling her destiny, which she has done, as you just said, numerous times.
She's got 1,500s up on the Russian Katnikova, who has, by the way, officially captured her first podium on the World Cup.
Ever? That really?
I'm not positive of that, but I believe when she won that World Championship last year, that was a first podium ever. But the matter at hand, Geisenberger with a big lead here, a quarter of a second at the moment.
And she's, drifted there a little bit much out of 12. See if that costs her the speed. 160, 115.5. That's not the best 116-kilometer speed.
She lost about 700s, but the track will
Should
run
be
out
enough.
before the lead does.
Should be enough. Yes, 800s.
145.283, only the third fastest run of the heat. She knows it, but she also knows she has no worse than a second-place finish for the third race in a row, and it could still be a victory.
And just another day at the office for this athlete who
took a year off.
Yeah.
And just as we did with Diana, our congratulations to Natalie and her husband Marcus on the birth of their baby Leo.
Watch
just
this
6
left.
months ago.
Look at the change of direction there. She wasn't really sure of herself. 12, she had too much at 12, and she came out to the wrong side of that straightaway. 14, she corrected well. Didn't have that big speed, lost time back, but she is the leader. There's one sled to go.
And it boils down to this. The 2 greatest lugers in women's competition over the past 3 or 4 years. Geisenberger with the lead down at the bottom. Tatyana Ivanova of Russia. While Geisenberger is in search of career victory 50, Ivanova will hope for her 15th career win, which would complete a big comeback from a disappointing week last week in Austria.
Second best starter in the first heat with a 5.55 start, 5.54. She's better, and she controls her destiny for the next 40 seconds.
Maintaining that 0.08 of a second advantage. In fact, she increased a little bit on the German from the start split to the secondary split.
Boy, to do what she did last week, Tim, in Innsbruck, to be in this position here, you talk about a turnaround.
Well, that was an anomaly of sorts in Innsbruck last year because she's almost always in the top 6 or 7. Looking good here, John.
Didn't have any issues. That looked like too much in 4 or 13. It's down to 800s, 116.5's good enough speed. She should do it.
It's Russia versus Germany, and the advantage here in Germany goes to the
11.
Russians with a great lower half of the part for Ivanova of the track. Despite a couple of small errors, her experience shows off.
Tim, Russia, Germany, Russia, Latvia. We were thinking it could be 1, 2, 3 Germany on this home track for the Germans. Pretty good day for the Russians.
Absolutely. The best of times, worst of times is, again, we wish Victoria Denchenko the best after her crash in run number 1. But best of times, Ivanova, Katnikova sharing the podium with the 2-time Olympic champion.
Well, under pressure, she delivered the goods.
We'll see if she takes that helmet off, and you can see you'll see what I meant earlier on how does she fit that hair underneath that helmet. But the good comparison there with the Austrian Egla.
Looks like she got in here a little, almost disappeared. And she
did it
came
with
over in the
confidence.
crossover. I thought she was going to hit the takeoff, too early. The Russians celebrate for good reason. Great day for
it was
Russians.
Really a surprisingly bad week last week.
Yeah.
In Innsbruck, where they failed to podium at all, and I don't recall a single race last year where the Russian men, women doubles didn't have at least one podium between them. Final result here: Ivanova takes career victory number 15. Geisenberger, for the third consecutive race, finishes second, and welcome to the podium, Katnikova, as Egla again heartbreakingly just outside, looking in to the podium. Nina Zugler, a 13th place finish. Taruma and the Latvians pretty respectable once again this week as we count them down from 1 to 28. And again, for the last time, the update on Victoria Denchenko after that bad crash. She did not start here in the second run, but she is okay.